trust in the medical system has been shattered. We've seen the cover-ups that occur.
The committee does not consider a significant investment in studies of the theoretical vaccine-autism connection to be useful at this time.
The denial that an injury did occur.
But they failed to call for further investigation.
And then the lack of treatment for that injury.
The CDC and drug companies have been trying to hint at, which is the autism epidemic is a genetic epidemic.
They told me that this is hereditary. I can trace my family back to the 1500s. I know where everyone was born, I know when everyone died, and I know exactly what they had. I know it's not hereditary. My husband can do the same. There's no one in my family that has ever had autism.
There are no genetic epidemics. It's an oxymoron. You can't have a genetic epidemic.
You have taken what medicine believes to be one of its greatest achievements, that is vaccination, the prevention of disease, and said there may be a problem with it. And if you do that, then you encounter not scientific argument, but passionate belief systems, which are very, very fondly held by those who have instituted them and perpetuated the dogma.
A team of U.S. medical experts concluded today that there is no connection between a controversial additive in childhood vaccines and a baffling increase in the number of autistic children.
My research has more than shown biological plausibility. It's shown that autistic children don't handle mercury like controlled children do.
Kids in the 1990s got more vaccines than ever, and with them more mercury preservative, which makes them cheaper. Some scientists think some babies retain mercury and it poisons their nervous system.
Weighing the risks, children's vaccines that some think could be linked to autism. What's the real story?
The question is, when you put measles, mumps and rubella, 3 live viruses together in the same vaccine, is that the same as giving them separately? Do 1 and 1 and 1 equal 3, or do they equal something completely different? It was clear to the regulatory authorities and to the manufacturers that there was what we call viral interference of one virus upon another one.
Does thimerosal cause autism or does MMR cause autism? When those retrospective studies were done, they've been done, and they don't show any evidence that it causes it. What that tells you is that, it doesn't cause it.
Immunologic or neuroimmunologic conditions are not specific enough for these types of epidemiologic studies.
Our duty is to investigate whether there is a relationship to the MMR vaccine, and although this is controversial, for every paper that the regulators can produce saying there is no link, I can produce another one saying that there is a link.
But a new study out today from the National Academy of Sciences says that scientists must look elsewhere for a culprit.
The panel said that based on 5 major studies of thousands of children, the explanation must be elsewhere.
I think any reasonable parent who takes their child in for their 2 or 4 month visit and lies them down on that table and watches the doctor or nurse line up 4 or 5 shots at the end of that table can only feel that it's too much. I mean, that's a completely reasonable feeling.
The cornerstone of conventional medical thought and science is the double-blind, placebo-controlled study, is what makes a drug safe and what should make a vaccine safe.
I am confident that the vaccines that are being used today, we know how they act and we know what their value is, we know what their side effects are, and therefore I do think that we know enough about those vaccines to use them.
However, in the research, there is no double-blind placebo-controlled study for safety in terms of the vaccine world. One vaccine is compared to another vaccine of a known safety profile. So that is not a safety study. That is comparing one vaccine to another, which doesn't make either one of them safe.
The minute the government workers can take outside money, you're in the position of the government does research, they also give out the grants, they're also the regulators, and now the people who they're regulating are giving you the money.
There are a series of conflicts. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends vaccines. They evaluate the safety of vaccines. They have advisors that advise them on what vaccines to give children, and those advisors have financial ties to manufacturers. And you've got the CDC as an agency involved in the business of manufacturing vaccines. Those series of conflicts make it very difficult to assess safety issues, period.
The problem we have with vaccines is that both the government and the manufacturers are sitting on the same side of the bench.
Industry is essential to vaccines, obviously, because they make them, and what we all want is vaccines that are made well and that are safe and effective.
They are not. They're bureaucrats. They're not going to up and say, hey, we made a big mistake. They're just not going to do that. So
you know, science advances, and science is always, in a sense, in a temporary state because it depends on, we don't know what we don't know.
No one doubts that there are adverse reactions to some vaccines. They happen. Children and adults suffer disease or disability as a result.
And looking back, I can say that he probably had symptoms of mercury poisoning as well. He had hypotonia, he had a high-pitched scream, he was inconsolable.
We now spend our vacation times going around and learning the effective treatments for autism and trying to recover what's left of our son.
It was Valentine's Day and she's gone. There's no eye contact, there's no response.
But by the time he was 14 months old, he was in full regression. He even stopped walking.
She just ignored us, was in her own little world.
My son has measles virus in his cerebral spinal fluid, and that's related to the vaccine, and that means that it's in his brain.
Medical doctor, you're God, and that's it. And you can't question them. You can't do anything, and they make you feel stupid, they make you feel dumb, they make you feel like you're worrying over nothing.
Now I'm angry. I've got this child who is perfectly fine, and all of a sudden he's got this stuttering problem.
Kids were fine, they got the shots, and then all of a sudden they're sick.
We went to Reynolds Hospital and they pronounced him dead.
When it happens to you, you're going to be in my shoes and you're going to wish to God you hadn't done it.